December had arrived in the small town of Everpine like a funeral shroud, and though the streets glistened under strings of colorful lights, children ran with snow-dusted cheeks, carrying candy canes and bundled in scarves. But their laughter seemed forced, hollow. Even the adults felt Ida creeping unease that settled in their bones like winter frost. This year, something felt different. Something felt wrong. The old toy factory on Maple Street, abandoned for decades and left to rot, had suddenly reopened. Its tall, broken windows, once dark and empty as dead eyes, now glowed with warm yellow light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. A sign swung above the door on rusty chains that shrieked in the wind. Everpine Toys, where magic lives. The townspeople whispered in hushed tones at the grocery store, at church, and their locked homes after dark. Who could have reopened that cursed place after all these years? And more importantly, why? The older residents remembered the stories. Children had disappeared near that factory, one by one, over the span of 40 years. Then, in 1963, it had closed abruptly. The owner vanished. No one ever spoke of what happened there, but everyone remembered the screams that echoed from within on that final night. For a 12-year-old Lily and her little brother Max, the factory was irresistible. Rumors of enchanted toys had spread like wildfire through the school hallways. Kids whispered about dolls that moved on their own, trains that ran without tracks, bears that hugged you back. Parents warned them, forbade them, threatened punishment. But curiosity won it always. The door opened with a long, agonizing creak that made Lily's teeth ache. Inside, the factory smelled of pine, varnish, and something faintly metallic like old pennies, or blood left to dry. The air was warm, almost suffocatingly warm for winter, and thick enough to taste. The soft sound of music boxers played somewhere deep within the building, a lullaby that felt both comforting and deeply wrong, like a mother's voice calling from beyond the grave. Shelves stretched endlessly into shadow-drenched corners, lined with dolls, trains, toy soldiers, jack-in-the-boxers, and puppets. Dust particles danced in the light like tiny ghosts, but these weren't ordinary toys. Their eyes seemed to follow movement, tracking the children with an intensity that made Lily's skin crawl. Porcelain dolls with cracked faces tilted their heads as Lily walked by, their necks creaking audibly. Toy soldiers seemed to shift slightly when she wasn't looking directly at them, adjusting their stances, turning their rifles. Max pointed with a trembling finger at a teddy bear whose stitched mouth twitched, contorting slowly into a grin that was far too wide, far too knowing. Just a trick of the light, Lily said, but her voice trembled and she didn't believe her own words. The bear's button eyes reflected nothing. They absorbed light, swallowed it whole. The floorboards groaned beneath their feet, each step announcing their presence. Cobwebs hung from the rafters like wedding veils, and in the dim corners, Lily could swear she saw shadows moving independent of any light source. The music box melody grew louder, more insistent, wrapping around them like invisible fingers. The shopkeeper appeared suddenly behind a shelf, materializing as if from thin air. An elderly man with a crooked smile that revealed too many teeth, far more than any mouth should hold. His skin was pale as candle wax, stretched tight over his skull. "Welcome, children," he said in a voice like rustling paper. "Take anything you like. Everything here wants to go home with someone." His eyes sparkled unnaturally, reflecting the flicker of the lights, but also something else. Something that moved beneath the surface, like worms under skin. Lily's instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet wouldn't obey. Max had already wandered deeper into the shop, drawn toward a particular shelf. Lily picked up a small wooden train, its red paint chipped and faded, revealing dark stains underneath. The moment her fingers closed around it, the toy felt warm body temperature. Warm and seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Max grabbed a plush rabbit, brown and soft, with one eye missing and the other hanging by a thread. The instant they touched the toys, the lights flickered once, twice, 3 times. A cold draft blew through the room with such force it nearly knocked them over, though every window was sealed with boards and nails. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds. Their breath misted in the air. The shopkeeper smiled wider, his lips splitting at the corners. "They like you," he whispered. "They've been waiting so long for playmates." The children explored further, compelled by something they couldn't name. A row of marionettes hung from the ceiling in a darkened alcove. Their strings taut, swaying as if invisible hands were preparing for a performance. The puppets' wooden faces were carved with expressions of terror, mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide with horror. One of them, a small boy puppet in short pants, had tears painted down its cheeks. Lily felt a tug on her sleeve. She spun around, heart hammering, but no one was there. Just the dolls on their shelves, staring with their glassy, dead eyes. Max whimpered, pressing close to his sister. "The toys there watching us. Lily, I want to go home." "Soon," Lily promised. Though she wasn't sure she could keep that promise, the exit seemed to have moved. She could no longer see the door they'd entered through. The shopkeeper's voice echoed softly from everywhere and nowhere. "They only want to play. Is that so wrong? To want companionship. To want life." A jack-in-the-box began turning on its own, the crank squeaking rhythmically. "Pop Goes the Weasel" played in a minor key. Max clutched Lily's hand so hard it hurt. They both stared at the box, waiting for the inevitable spring, the clown that would burst forth. But when the music stopped, nothing happened. The box sat silent. Then, from behind them, a clown's laugh echoed high-pitched, maniacal, endless. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time seemed warped and meaningless in this place. The light never changed. The music never stopped. The children noticed that some of the toys they had touched were now gone from the shelves, their spaces filled with dark, empty gaps. In their place were small handprints pressed into the dust of the wooden floor, dozens of them, hundreds, trailing off into the darkness. Children's handprints. Lily's heart raced so fast she thought it might tear itself apart. She pulled Max toward where she thought the exit should be, but they were in a different room now, older, with water damage staining the walls in patterns that looked like screaming faces. Then they heard it. Faint giggles, not coming from any direction, but from everywhere at once. Childish laughter that held no joy, only hunger. The sound bounced off the walls, multiplied, grew into a cacophony of dead children's voices. Toys began moving on their own. The wooden train Lily had held chugged along the floor, its wheels clicking rhythmically, stopping directly in front of her. Smoke puffed from its tiny chimney, real smoke that smelled of burning hair. The teddy bear in Max's arms suddenly felt heavier, its plush body hardening. Its button eyes blinked and rotated in their stitched sockets to look up at the boy. Its stitched mouth moved, fabric lips peeling apart, whispering in a voice like grinding glass. "Don't leave, stay forever. Play with us. We're so lonely, so hungry." The rabbit's remaining eye began to weep, black tears. Lily dropped the train and grabbed Max, yanking the rabbit from his arms. The toy screamed an actual, piercing scream as it hit the floor. All around them, toys were waking. Dolls climbed down from shelves, their porcelain limbs moving in jerky, unnatural motions. Their heads spun completely around. Toy soldiers marched in formation, their wooden rifles raising to aim. A rocking horse galloped in place, its painted eyes rolling with madness. "Run!" Lily screamed, pulling Max behind her. They ran, but the factory seemed endless, impossible. Corridors stretched away from them as they ran, growing longer with each step. Doorways led to identical rooms. Staircases went nowhere. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like lungs. The toys pursued them relentlessly, dolls crawling on all fours like spiders, their heads tilted at broken angles. Toy soldiers firing tiny wooden bullets that left splinters in the walls. Mechanical wind-up creatures scuttling across the ceiling. They found themselves in a room filled with mirrors, dozens of team, reflecting endless versions of the children, each reflection slightly different. In some, they were smiling. In others, they were rotting. In one, they weren't there at all, replaced by two porcelain dolls. Max started crying. "Lily, I see them. In the mirrors. There are other kids there, trapped. They're in the toys." Lily looked and her blood froze. In the reflections, she could see faces translucent, ghostly trapped inside the dolls, the bears, the soldiers, children's faces, mouths open in eternal screams. Some of the faces looked decades old, from photographs she'd seen in the town's historical society, the missing children of Everpine. "Stop," the shopkeeper's voice boomed, though he was nowhere in sight. The walls vibrated with the force of it. "They only want to play. They only want to live again. Is that so much to ask? You'll be so happy here. You'll never grow old. Never feel pain. Never be alone." The temperature dropped until frost formed on the mirrors. Their reflections began moving independently, stepping forward, reaching through the glass with hands that stretched impossibly long. Cornered in the main hall, surrounded by hundreds of toys that formed a tightening circle, Lily realized the terrible truth. These toys weren't enchanted, they were vessels, prisons. The spirits of children who had vanished in Everpine over decades were trapped here, bound to wood and fabric and porcelain. The factory had fed on them, slowly collecting more victims each Christmas, using their life force to power itself, to grow, to hunger for more. And the shopkeeper wasn't a man at all. He was the factory itself, given form. The building's malevolent consciousness made flesh. A giant music box at the center of the hall began to wind up, its mechanism grinding and shrieking. The melody that emerged was warped and sinister, a distorted version of Silent Night that made Lily's ears bleed. The lid of the music box slowly opened, and inside, she could see them dozens of tiny figures. Children frozen mid-dance, eyes wide with terror. Real children shrunk and trapped and forced to dance forever. The music grew louder, more insistent, and Lily felt herself growing sleepy, felt her body wanting to shrink, to join the dance. "Nitrogen," she screamed, fighting against the pull. She understood now they had to destroy it. The music box was the heart of this place, the source of its power. She spotted a heavy iron hammer on a nearby workbench, probably left behind decades ago. With Max clinging to her back, she lunged for it. The toys swarmed, grabbing at her ankles, her hair, her clothes. She kicked and thrashed, felt small teeth biting her legs, tiny hands scratching. But she reached the hammer, heart pounding so hard she could hear nothing else. She raised it high and brought it down on the music box with all her strength. The glass case shattered. The melody screeched like a dying animal. The entire room shuddered violently, cracks spreading across the floor and walls like lightning. The tiny frozen children inside the box suddenly moved, gasped, and vanished in bursts of light. The shopkeeper's form flickered, his face contorting in rage and agony, and then he too disappeared, dissolving into smoke and shadow. For a moment, there was only silence, beautiful, blessed silence. Then, as the building began to collapse around them, the children bolted toward the exit. The walls were crumbling, toys falling from shelves and shattering. They burst through the front door into the freezing December night, gasping and sobbing. Behind them, the factory groaned one final time. The lights went dark. The building seemed to exhale, and then the toys froze, truly lifeless at last. But one small wooden train followed them, rolling slowly across the snow-covered street, its wheels clicking softly, marking their escape. Lily turned to look and saw it stop at the edge of the factory property, as if held back by an invisible barrier. It sat there, smoke still rising from its chimney, watching them go. They ran all the way home. The next morning, the factory was gone. Only a burnt-out lot remained, scorched earth and twisted metal. The police investigated but found nothing, no bodies, no evidence it had ever reopened. The townspeople shook their heads, claiming the children had imagined it all, some elaborate prank. Stress. The holidays do strange things to people. But Lily knew the truth, and she knew it wasn't over. Because in her backpack, despite throwing it away 3 times, Max's plush rabbit kept returning, each time more pristine than before, as if brand new. Its missing eye had been replaced. Its stitching was perfect. And at night, sometimes, when the house was dark and silent, Lily could hear the soft whisper coming from Max's room. From the rabbit sitting on his shelf, its button eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "Come back, it's your turn to play. We're waiting. We're always waiting, and this time you'll stay forever." The toy train sat on the street outside their house, partially buried in snow, waiting. Patient. Christmas was coming again. And the factory always reopens. Always. Always.